Unusual lures for our Polish conditions, as the name itself suggests. As the name also indicates, they are mainly dedicated to bass fishing, but they also work great in our Polish conditions. To be honest, I was surprised myself at how effectively they could attract predators that wouldn't react at all to our typical Polish lures. Since we have 4 different models here of lures, I'll first try to briefly talk about each of them, and then we'll move on to some common features and rigging. The first is the bass crazed twisted worm, which is probably the closest to the lures you know, a larva-shaped lure ending with a twister tail. It weighs nearly 7 grams and is 15 centimeters long, so it's already a really solid chunk. Next we have the bass slim finesse worm, which is also a 15 centimeter soft bait, but it weighs only 4 grams. The first thing that comes to mind is a big earthworm, like a nightcrawler. I mainly use these lures to target larger predatory species, such as pike or zander. But looking at the construction of this lure and its incredible action, I'm sure it will also work great for catching perch or trout, serving as an imitation of a leech, lamprey, or even a large river worm. So for sure, next season you'll see a lot of videos on our social media featuring these lures, so I invite you to follow us so you don't miss any content. Next we have the Bass Fat Boy Wacky Worm, which is a slightly smaller lure, just 13 centimeters and a little over 4 grams. As the name suggests, it is mainly dedicated to the rigging method called wacky rig. So if you've watched videos about bass fishing, you'll know that these types of lures are usually rigged right in the middle of the body with a single hook. That's why the design of this lure is not accidental, it's symmetrical. The lure tapers towards the ends, and right in the middle there's a distinctive bulge, which is meant to help us rig the lure correctly using this method. Finally, we have the buzzfat stickworm. It's a 13 centimeter lure weighing just over 5 grams. I'll be honest with you, I spent by far the most time fishing for zander and pike with this lure. I even managed to catch an asp while fishing for zander with this lure, which, among other interesting things, was a pleasant surprise. This is a lure that mainly reminds me of a kind of fatty deworm tournament combined with a dying worm. Only it's a significantly thicker and indeed a much larger version, and one of the truly important features worth noting here is the very distinctive and prominent groove, which allows you to rig this particular fishing lure more effectively and securely with an offset hook. All these lure models are available in 12. These are really great vibrant colors, packed in convenient reusable packages of 8 individual pieces. And they come with a highly effective reusable attractant. Because these are incredibly convenient Ziploc bags that we can easily open, carefully take out a specific lure while actively fishing, and of course meticulously put it back in and securely seal it tightly, so absolutely no unpleasant smell escapes into the surrounding environment whatsoever. And at the same time, we don't have to carry any extra box, which I personally think is a great advantage, because we can take a few lures from different models, put them all into one bag like this, stash it somewhere in your pocket, and you basically have your entire arsenal of lures with you. However, it's important for you to remember not to mix these lures with other types of lures, because they can react with each other in unwanted ways. You can actually rig all these lures in a dozen different ways. I have 3 personal favorites that have worked best for me, and I also had the most faith in the effectiveness of these lures when it comes to rigging them. So, starting with our classic jig head, you can easily rig them up. Try to make sure that the jig head is as well matched as possible. Short, because that simply adds more action and effectiveness to these lures. Besides the classic jig head, another good method that I often use is rigging with a hook, with a stinger. Additionally, this allows for even better action because the soft bait isn't stiff. It's the same here. The shorter the hook, the better in my opinion, because as you can see, all these soft baits are very flexible, and any stiffening of the lure takes away from its action. That's why I try to rig them as short as possible, just to maximize the effectiveness of the lure. And now the last rigging method, which is definitely my favorite when it comes to these lures, which is fishing with a drop shot rig. Here we have a single hook. In my case, it's an offset hook because we're using the buzzfat stickworm here, which, as I mentioned earlier, has that characteristic groove that allows us to rig it even better with an offset hook. But you can do it just as easily with all the other lures. We can rig them in exactly this way and with this type of offset hook, due to the fact that I think a very big advantage of all these lures is that they are extremely soft. If you fish with lures from the Throat series, well, you know how soft they are. We deal in baits from our brand, and it's the same here, so there's no problem. Even if the hook doesn't stick out, it can even be embedded in this soft lure. But if the fish swallows it and you strike with the right timing, then it's no problem at all. The hook will pierce the fish's mouth. And these 3 rigging methods are more than enough for us to fish effectively with these lures. And they really can tempt even the laziest predators. But I don't even need to tell you about it because I'm taking these lures to the water right now. See for yourselves how they work in action.
Oh, I got one, but I saw a small subtle swirl on the water right here. Cast my line over there, and here. It finally is. It's not the biggest catch, but it's a good small fish. Oh look, a little fish like this. A fierce twister in its powerful mouth. Alright, let's unhook the fish. See, that's what happens when you lose your forceps somewhere. You have to unhook it with whatever you've got. But luckily it stayed on. Though it did nip my thumb, I could already feel the twister unhooked and I'm releasing the fish. That's how I rigged it up. We're using soft baits on drop shots, where the technique itself is really simple. I cast, reel in the slack, wait for it to sink. It's pretty shallow here. I'm using a heavy jig head to make longer casts, and I just twitch the tip of the rod with little pauses. The soft bait works its way through the water column and entices predators. That's the whole method. We'll try this particular drop shot without any significant pauses, just letting the fishing lure twitch gently on its own, completely unassisted. Besides, that works too. Hey, didn't you see that? A large powerful pike just dramatically jumped completely out of the shimmering water, much like a nimble trout going after a small, unsuspecting fish. Unbelievable. Yeah, that was an incredible moment. I mean, I don't think it even caught anything. It just leapt all the way out of the water. Pike, got one. It's on. It's on. I'm using pretty thin fluorocarbon here, so it'd be great not to lose it. But it's definitely going to be the same one since it's from the same spot, though it seems a bit better. But it's probably a similar fish, most likely that same little one. Look how it swallowed it, the whole soft bait worm right in its mouth. Alright, I'll show it to you in a moment. It got me a bit tangled up here. Whoa, 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 whoa. It truly got off so very quickly. You were so incredibly patient. And now what exactly happened? Damn, that's exactly the power of autumn fish. Luckily, it didn't nip me with any of its teeth, but just look, only the tail of the worm is sticking out and it swallowed it incredibly. Just look at how it must have grabbed it, since the soft bait is sticking out here. And a beautiful fat fish on a drop shot. Sometimes they're lazy, but this one struck perfectly. Let's unhook it. And it actually wasn't even hooked anymore, it just came out. But that's probably because of all the struggling. Take a look. A scar. And once again, really a good pike. Let's not stress the fish any longer. It's really a strong one. Loaded water. And I hope you found out everything you needed to know about these lures. They're unusual for Polish conditions, but they really can open up the water. I invite you to follow our YouTube channel as well as our other social media. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next videos. Bye.